Hey guys, welcome to BudgetEDH. On this week's episode, we bring you Thalisse, Reverent Medium from Commander Legends. Thalisse is 3, a white and a black for a legendary creature, human cleric. At the beginning of each end step, create X 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of tokens you created this turn. All prices in this video are powered by TCG Player. If you guys are going to be shopping on TCG Player, it would mean the world to me if you guys would use my affiliate link, which I'll put up on the screen right now, and it will also be in the show notes down below. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does help the channel out quite a bit. We also want to thank our other sponsor, Dragon Shield. Dragon Shield has some of the best sleeves and Magic the Gathering accessories on the market at a very affordable price. If you go to our affiliate link, it will take you to the website, and there you'll see all the different products that they offer. With Thalisse, we want to make as many tokens as we can, and we want to make them on each turn if possible, so instant speed ways of making tokens is going to be the bread and butter of this deck. And then when we make those tokens, we're going to get more spirits at the end of each end step, more tokens that we can use to our advantage. Now, the easiest way of building this deck is to have those tokens and swing in with them and have ways of pumping those tokens up and try to swing out with our opponents. But we do want to have ways that we're able to gain some value off those tokens because we don't know if those tokens are going to stick around. Our opponents could board wipe. So we want some ways of cashing those tokens in for additional value in this deck. So we do have a lot of ways of doing that to get additional value off of them or to deal some additional damage to our opponents without just having to swing in with combat damage. And the other way that we're able to do that is with the Aristocrats sub-theme that we have in this deck. So if we're able to sack those tokens to gain additional value, we can use our Aristocrats package that we have in this deck to deal some additional damage to our opponents and drain our opponents out for life, which is great. We do have quite a bit of interaction in this deck since it is a Orzhov color pairing. We do have a lot of single target removal, and we also have some board wipes in here that are cheap and efficient. The main ways that we can win the game with this deck is, of course, swinging out with the tokens and dealing some damage with our opponents, but ultimately we do want to set up some sort of loop where we're gaining a lot of tokens with Thalisse's ability and then sacking those tokens and draining our opponents out with that Aristocrat package that we have in here. Okay, so let's go over the stats of this deck. So in this deck, we've got 9 ramp spells, we've got 13 ways of drawing cards, we've got 9 ways of interacting with our opponents in both board wipes and also with single targeted removal. We've got 21 ways of generating tokens in the deck, and then we do have a sub-theme in this deck of Aristocrats, and there's 16 cards that work with that Aristocrats theme. And then we've got 34 lands in this deck. Let's start this deck tech by talking about some of the ramp that we include in this deck. Because it's a white and black deck, we did go with mana rocks. That's our best option that we can have in here. I tend to like to go with mana rocks that are 1 or 2 converted mana cost. So that's the majority of what we went with here. So first up, we've got Soul Ring and Wayfarer's Bubble. Both of these are 1 mana and are going to be great to get on turn 1 to ramp into your commander as quickly as possible, since she is 5 converted mana cost. Then we've got Arcane Signet, which is a great one. It's been getting reprinted a lot, so the price on this has been going down quite a bit, so it is a budget mana rock now. Then we've got Orzhov Signet, Talisman of Hierarchy, and Mind Stone, all 2 converted mana cost artifacts that will ramp you up early in the game. Then we've got Prismatic Lens. Then we've got the 3 converted mana cost mana rocks. Kind of unavoidable in this deck unless we start going into the more expensive mana rocks, so we do have some of them that cost 3. We've got Commander Sphere, which is great because they let you draw a card. Heraldic Banner is an awesome one out of Throne of Eldraine that lets you pump up your creatures so you can name white and all your spirits will get +1/+0. They're going to hit for a little bit more. And then last but not least, we do have Solemn in this deck as well. Solemn's great. He's super cheap now because he's been reprinted a million times. Most recently in M21. Comes in, lets you put a land from your deck onto the battlefield, a basic land. And then when he dies, you also get to draw a card. So he's got a lot of value on him. Next up, let's go over the interaction that we have in this deck. So first up, we've got Swords to Plowshares, lets you exile a creature. Feed the Swarm lets you destroy target creature or enchantment and you lose life equal to it. Despark lets you exile target permanent with converted mana cost 4 or greater. These are all really great spells that cost 1 or 2 converted mana costs. They're going to help you deal with problematic permanents on the board. Then we got Generous Gift, one of my favorite white spells for getting rid of creatures. Basically Beast Within on a white card. We've got Mortify, lets you destroy a target creature or enchantment. And then Utter End lets you exile target non-land permanent. Then we've got our board wipes. We do have 3 in here. We've got Cleansing Nova. You can destroy all creatures or all artifacts and enchantments. Austere Command, very similar. similar, destroy all artifacts or enchantments, or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, or 4 or greater. You get to choose 2 of those, making it really powerful. And then Merciless Eviction is another modal board wipe. You can exile all artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or planeswalkers, but you only get to choose 1 of those. So next up, let's go over the draw that we have in this deck. Now we do have quite a bit of draw in here. A lot of it deals with sacrificing our creatures, getting some additional value off of those tokens. So first up, we've got Village Rites. You sack a creature and draw 2 cards. Altar's Reap, exact same thing, just costs an extra mana. And then Costly Plunder does the exact same thing, except you can sack an artifact as well. So if you got some treasures lying around or something like that, you can sack those, get 2 cards off of it as well. Then we got Bankrupt in Blood, same thing, except you sack 2 creatures to draw 3 cards. Priest of the Forgotten Gods lets you sack 2 creatures, and then any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature, and then you also get to add 2 mana to your mana pool and draw a card. Great with this deck is you do have a ton of tokens that you want to get value off of. Priest of the Forgotten Gods is great in this deck. Then we've got Smothering Abomination. At the beginning of your upkeep, sack a creature, and then whenever you sacrifice a creature, you draw a card. So not just that first time, but any time you sack a creature, you get to draw a card. Really powerful in this deck as well. Then we've got one of the best card draw spells ever in a token deck is Skull Clamp. You can clamp your creature to draw 2 cards whenever it dies. If you have 1/1 tokens, you just pop this on your creature. For 1 mana, you can draw 2 cards as many times as you want. Mentor the Meek. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 1 if you do draw a card. So whenever you make one of those little spirit tokens, you can pay 1, draw a card. It doesn't say non-token, so it will work with tokens as well. Siphon Mind's a black card that I've been putting in a ton of decks. It's a 4 mana sorcery. Each other player discards a card, and you draw a card for each card discarded this way. So all your opponents will discard a card. You'll draw 3 cards off of it. Really powerful. Then we've got Knight's Whisper, Sign in Blood, Read the Bones. They all let you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. Read the Bones lets you scry before you do the draw as well. And then we've got Idol of Oblivion. This is a 2-fer. It lets you draw a card if you made a token this turn. And then you can also pay 8 and sack it to make a 10/10 Eldrazi colorless creature token. Gets you some extra ways of making tokens in the deck, but it's really used for its card draw. All right, next up, let's go over all the ways of making tokens that we have in this deck. And we do have quite a bit of ways of making tokens. Like I said in the intro to the video, we do want to focus on ways that we're able to create tokens at instant speed so we can do it on each turn, so we can take full advantage of Thalisse's ability that triggers on each end step. So ideally, you'd want to make tokens on your turn and then past turn, make it on their turn as well if you can. So first up, we've got Legion's Landing. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 vampire creature token, and you can transform this by attacking with 3 creatures, and it transforms into a land that also makes a token for 2 mana. Then we've got Raise the Alarm, 2 mana instant, lets you create 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. Lingering Souls is a sorcery that creates 2 spirits and it has flashbacks. You can do it a second time as well. Then we got Spectral Procession, also a sorcery, puts 3 spirits onto the battlefield. Midnight Haunting is a instant version of Lingering Souls without the flashback. And then Oketra's Monument, whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. It does also reduce the casting cost of white creature spells in your deck by 1 as well. Then we've got Pawn of Ulamog. Whenever it dies or another non-token creature you control dies, you can create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token that you can sack to add a colorless to your mana pool. Twilight Drover, whenever another creature token leaves the battlefield, you can put a +1/+1 counter on Twilight Drover, and then you can pay 3 and remove a counter from it to put 2 white spirits onto the battlefield with flying. Teysa Orzhov, you can sacrifice 3 white creatures to remove target creature from the game. So she's really powerful, gives you a sack outlet as well. And then whenever another black creature you control is put into a graveyard from play, it doesn't say non-token, so just keep that in mind. You can put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying into play as well. Then we've got a couple of ways of making tokens with landfall. We've got Retreat to Emeria and Felidar Retreat. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you're going to create either a 1/1 white core ally creature or a 2/2 cat beast. And you can also put +1/+1 counters or give your creatures +1/+1 with these as well. Pitiless Plunderer is a awesome card. Whenever another creature you control dies, you get to create a treasure. This one's gone up in value quite a bit since Rivals of Ixalan. It's up to $5 now, but it's just such a powerful card and hasn't been reprinted since. Then we've got a newer one out of Commander Legends. We've got Court of Grace. It's an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you get to become the monarch. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. If you are the monarch, you get to create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying instead. Increasing Devotion is a sorcery that puts 5 1/1 white creature tokens onto the battlefield. And if it was cast from a graveyard, you get to create 10 of those tokens instead. It does have flashback to help you do that. Revel in Riches. Whenever a creature an opponent opponent controls dies, you get to create a treasure token. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. This card's really great with Pitiless Plunder. If you have both of those on the battlefield, anytime a creature dies, you're going to get a treasure, and it's going to get out of control pretty quickly. And then we got Secure the Waste. Put X 1/1 white warrior creature tokens on the battlefield. I like this one because it's an instant, so you can do it in your opponent's end step to get all those tokens, and then Thalisse will also trigger and you get more as well. Finale of Glory. Create X 2/2 white soldier creature tokens with vigilance. If X is 10 or more, you also create X 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance as well. White Sun Zenith is another instant, which I really like. Create X 2/2 white cat creature tokens, and then you get to shuffle it back into your library so you can use it more than once. And then last but not least, we do have Decree of Justice. Create X 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying. This one does have a hefty casting cost. The nice thing about this is it does have cycling. So when you cycle it, if you pay X, you can pay X. And if you do, you create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. Next up, let's go over the Aristocrats package that we have in this deck. We included this package in this deck because we do want to get value off of those tokens. We don't want to just have to rely on swinging in with combat damage. Although that could work in a lot of cases, we do want to have some extra flexibility, cash those tokens in to get some additional value. So first up, we've got Viscera Seer. You can sack a creature to scry 1. Ashnod's Altar. It is a bit pricey, but you can sack a creature to add 2 colorless to your mana pool. Then we've got Woe Strider. This is another Viscera Seer that you can sack a creature and scry 1, but when it also comes into play, you get a goat with it as well. The other cool thing is you can escape. If somebody kills it, you can bring it back later by escaping 4 cards from your graveyard. Then we've got Zulaport Cutthroat and Cruel Celebrant. Whenever they or another creature you control dies, you can drain each opponent for 1 life and you gain a life. And then Blood Artist. Whenever any creature dies, including Blood Artist, 1 target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So a little bit of difference with those cards. Then we've got Bastion of Remembrance. Same text as Zulaport Cutthroat. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. And then Sir Conrad is a fantastic card. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent. So basically, anytime anything happens, it's going to deal damage to your opponents. Corpse Knight is the opposite. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. Also really good in tokens. You're going to be making a ton of them. Whenever they enter the battlefield, have each opponent lose a life, which is really powerful too. So next up, let's go over some of the cards that I would classify in the utility section. And we do have 4 cards in here that are going to help us out with our game plan. So we'll go over those. So first up, we've got Strionic Resonator. This is a 2-mana artifact that you can pay 2 and tap it. Copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. So Thalisse is a triggered ability. So at the beginning of each end step, if you made a token, you're going to put that many spirit tokens onto the battlefield. So that will trigger at the beginning of each end step. So you can copy that with Strionic Resonator to put 2 instances of that onto the stack to get double the amount of tokens that Thalisse would have created, making this a really nice include for the deck. We do have other triggered abilities in here as well that you can take advantage of. Next up, we've got a way of pumping our creatures up. And like I said, one of the ways we can win with this deck is through combat damage. I didn't put a ton of ways in this deck to pump your creatures up, just some of the more powerful ones. And I do feel like this one is very powerful. It's Cathar's Crusade. It's a 5-mana enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So when all those tokens come in with Thalisse or Secure the Waste or whatnot, this is going to put all those triggers on the stack because they're all going to come in at the same time. So for example, if you make 10 Secure the Waste tokens, Cathar's Crusade is going to put 10 1/1 counters onto each of those creatures, making it an extremely powerful card in a token deck. Next up, we've got another token generator. It's also a way of searching your library for cards, a tutor as well. So we've got Tamio's Journal. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can investigate. So you can put a clue token onto the battlefield, and clues have pay 2 and sack it to draw a card. And then you can tap it to sacrifice 3 clues to search your library for a card and put that card into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this is a really nice way of putting extra tokens on the battlefield, obviously, but you can actually save those clues up if there's something you really are looking for in your deck. Maybe you want that Cathar's Crusade to try to kill your opponents through combat damage, or maybe you need Ashnod's Altar to combo off and do some crazy stuff. You can save up and then cash them in and search your library for any card, which is really nice. And then last but not least, this is one of my favorite commanders, and she's great in this deck. Any Orzhov deck that cares about tokens, you definitely want to put her in. I mean, we did make a deck tech on her as one of my first ones I actually made. It's Teysa Karlov out of Ravnica Allegiance. She's a legendary creature. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Creature tokens you control have Vigilance and Lifelink. So not only is she great in token decks, she's also fantastic in Aristocrat builds as well, which we're kind of doing a hybrid theme in this deck. So she's perfect in here. So if you have a creature that you sacrifice and then Zulaport Cutthroat is going to drain your opponents out, it's actually going to trigger 2 times. So it will drain your opponents for 2 life. Really easy to kill your opponents with this on the battlefield if it sticks around, not only through the combat damage and the lifelink with Vigilance, but also doubling up on those death triggers is no joke. Do have a lot of ways of taking advantage of that in this deck. Thank you so much for watching our video today. If you like this video and you want to see more budget commander content, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can also check us out on patreon.com/BudgetEDH. There's a bunch of different tiers and ways to interact with us outside of YouTube. We'll see you guys next time.